Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next panel. The name of this one is Does User Interface Really Matter? And I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. Sorry if that's a spoiler. But we have another all-star panel. We
could say no and, continue with the day.
No, because then I would have to beat you senseless. It's all right. So we have another all-star panel for you. And again, I'm not going to take too much time. I'll introduce each of the speakers in turn. First up, we have Ofer Weintraub, who's got a product, kind of the ultimate second screen experience, I suppose. Let's hope so, he says. So I'm not going to take any more of his time. Ofer, take it away.
Okay. Yeah. So again, Ofer Weintraub from Viaccess-Orca. And we have a product that actually takes your content or your programming or your data, whether you're a studio or producers, will disintegrate it and will reintegrate it and create automatically magazines out of your content on a second screen. So your content can become, thousands and tens of thousands of magazines on a second screen that works with the television. Okay, and what I'd like to discuss in the 5 minutes I have is a little bit of our experience on creating the user interface and what we learned and what we think we learned. The product is in trials now, so not yet too much feedback, but a little bit along the lines of our thinking and what did we have in mind when creating the user interface. Okay, so first of all, we wanted our product to really accompany you throughout all times. So before viewing television, while viewing, during viewing television, and after. So the before is more helping you discovering things that relates to the content that might be interesting for you. Then during, interacting with content, and after, if there are some topics or items that you want to learn more, there will be magazines automatically created from the content that was seen on TV. So there will be magazines around this content. So just as an example, think about a movie that we always use as an example, Midnight in Paris. I don't know how many of you have seen it. So different artists, this era that called La Belle Époque, which was the great 20s in Paris, fashion, antique cars, all of these are topics that are automatically extracted, and you will get the magazines to really learn more after watching TV. So all three periods, okay? Then the interface needs to tell a story very quickly to capture the audience, okay? So you see some nice lines that the last one I like very much, longed for him, got him, shit, But it's a very quick and it has to be very immediate and punctual. And we try to do it with visual storytelling as well. And as you can see, this metaphor of Monopole with Demi Moore, where she was born, her first boyfriend, she had many, as you know. So a little bit about her life in a visual way, okay? So that's the visual stories. Then another principle we had is adapting to digital and analog users. Okay, not all of us are, very comfortable with digital, jumping from here to there and scrolling and touching and do all these gestures. So we wanted that even, the most analog guy could go in and just have the magazine experience by flipping pages and could get almost all the data. Of course, if he wants to do all these digital stuff of jumping around, that's possible too. But the analog experience of flipping magazines should be there as well. That was one of the design principles. Then, with the discovery part, the beginning, discovering content, we wanted to have a lot of angles, a lot of starting points. And so think of this as like an amusement park. You'd go to different places, right? So this is very interesting because it's kind of you could choose the one of these inquisitions tools or go to a cafe place. So it should be different entering point. And for example, you could start with gossip and news and go to different actors and movies, or you can, this is long tail, what's called flea market. So you could find interesting and good content that is not very popular everything today is trending, right? So this is not trending, this is untrending, but still very good content. Or you can see this is trending, okay? What people are talking in Twitter right now, and this is the next 4 hours for TV shows. So all kinds of pages in the magazine, all different starting points. And as I discussed earlier, we think it also has to be education and curiosity fulfillment. So when you saw some things, and this is the example from Midnight in Paris, you saw some artists, you want to learn about their lives, okay, there's a magazine for it, and we create those magazines automatically. So here, this is the example of Claude Monet, his life, his art period, some related artists or topics that relate to it, all of this created. So actually, you can really learn and learn about art in this case, and link back to content. So at some point you say, okay, I'm now, learned a little bit about Monet and Picasso, and I want to see what kind of art content do I have in my service. So, very easily you can go back to content from topics and education part. And last, maybe, but not least, is the what we call super engagement. And this is really a lot of ways to discover serendipity, new ways to discover content and maybe add to wish list or purchase. And a very good example today is Amazon. Amazon is doing it very well. I have a Kindle. How many books did I buy? More than 100. How many books did I read? 3 or 4. Why? Because they have this ability to tell you, I see books, and the book says, if you only buy 1 book this year, this should be, if you only read 1 book in your entire life, this should be the book. Of course, they're saying it for almost every second book, and I keep buying them. It's not too expensive, and I say, to someday, and that's what we call super engagement, because you really feel that you want to have this. In this case, it's books, but it could be, of course, TV shows, etc. So this allowing users to discover and subscribe, add to wish list, whatever, to content that they don't even have time to see, okay? But at least it's part of this, what we call super engagement. So that's all. These are a little bit of the behind the scenes of designing the user interface for this magazine's platform.
Thanks very much. I'm interested. I think we're going to hear more about this in a second, but the idea of telling a story around the story,
yeah.
And that's what appeals to people. Next up, we have Gene Liebel from Huge. Huge are an international design agency, and among other things, they created HBO Go. And Gene's going to talk a bit about that.
Thanks, Louisa.
Can we have Gene's presentation? There we go.
All right. So my proposition today is usable design could be the biggest opportunity in the TV and video industry. So how can this be? I mean, everybody in the room probably agrees that usable design is a good thing. It's kind of like saying being polite is an opportunity. How can that be, a business opportunity? Well, let me explain. So today, the cable companies, which we call multi-service operators in the States, they have what you need. They have all the series and all the games you need to watch. So you have to subscribe to cable. And cord cutting really hasn't started happening too much yet in the US, despite all the talk about it. So that leads to experiences like this. This is, we can all agree this is not good user interface. Nobody enjoys using this, but you sort of have to use it if you have cable, right? There's no choice. So this is all starting to change forever. And I'll give you some examples of why I think usability is back and why usability is a massive opportunity to differentiate your service. And we're already starting to see results in a lot of areas. So one of the biggest design challenges for video services is discovery, right? In the States, people watch over 50 hours of TV per household, which still amazes me somehow. Like, when are they doing this? But the TV is on over 50 hours a week, and they're not just doing video on demand. There's not really the ability to sort of program 50 hours of YouTube videos, but they're actually starting to try. So a key feature is discovery. Does the service help me find new things that are interesting to me? And the TV, the remote control, actually is terrible at this. But some of the new video services are getting traction and more usage by having powerful discovery, especially Netflix. Then there's just basic accessibility. People want to shift to new platforms like the iPad, so all of the big content providers are now allowing you to do that. But the sign-in process is amazingly complicated sometimes. You have to find your password. I didn't even know I had a password for my cable company. I have to dig it up. So the bailout rate is still almost half in some cases. So in other words, half the people can't even get it to work. Sounds obvious, but it's a big opportunity. And then, of course, one more shift in behavior, of course, is people are time shifting and trying to save video. But you really have to manage your DVR, your digital video recorder. You have to be aware of things like how much storage space do I have left. These are not attributes of usable services, right? And then, of course, second screen experiences, like we just saw from Ofer, those are starting to become more important. But those, we've done a few of those. I believe those require perfect design execution. If they're not perfect, people don't use them. It's a little more work to have two screens open, so those have to be usable. And so if you're considering those, and they are a big opportunity long term, you need to have more design capability. And by the way, people definitely are using them. Almost 90% of people have some other device open when they watch TV, and that's kind of the new context of use for watching TV. And then this is the category that actually interests me the most, I would say, is that I believe shows that are created for interactivity from the start, and we're doing one in partnership with Viacom right now, will actually win many content categories long term. In other words, shows that are designed to have interactivity built into them. And this is one for BAT, where it's driven by users' tweets. And this is a very crude example, but there are a lot more in the works. So just a long-term prediction, I think usability hasn't mattered much in the past. Today it's starting to matter, and I believe it'll be a big factor going forward, and it's already starting to be. Let me go fast. Just sort of one quick example for you. If you're a little skeptical that usability could matter that much, consider iOS versus Android. Android is a reasonably usable operating system, but the apps on iOS get used 9 times more. And that's just because, I would say, just briefly, they're more discoverable. And in many cases, it's the exact same app. So just quickly, we did a project with HBO. They're an amazing client, so lucky to have them. It's called HBO Go. I think there's a video here. So I'm not going to play Game of Thrones, sorry, and I don't have sound because user interface can be boring work sometimes. But here's the discovery piece where you're able to see what series HBO has. We find that people have HBO Go. They quickly become aware that HBO has more series than they realize. HBO usually markets 2 or 3 big series, but people who have the application realize that HBO actually has over 10 series. So discovery is much more powerful, but it does require some care with the design. And I'm running out of time. But these are just examples of the design patterns we created for this application. There's an interactive piece where you actually get content integrated into the Game of Thrones show, built right into the app, so you don't need a second screen device. That took a lot of work in testing because we didn't want to sort of take over the show, but we wanted to make those special content features very discoverable, and fans of the show end up using those a lot, actually, it turns out. Just some quick results, if I can skip ahead in the video. So we're allowed to say share some data. So 85% of all people who have Go end up watching more HBO. And even more important is that the rate of unsubscription. Most premium channels, as you probably know, have a pretty high rate of churn. People actually unsubscribe. So in areas where HBO Go has been made available, people unsubscribe less. So it's been a pretty big success.
Thanks very much, Gene. Some really beautiful work. And finally, we have Mattias Hjelmstedt, who's going to tell us about the future, I think. Speaking of unplugging. There we go.
Oh, thank you. It was actually perfectly framed here for me, so I don't even need to make a presentation, I think. So I can just show what we're doing instead. But I'll try anyways. So I'm Mattias, and actually started in an industry with great user experience, which is gaming industry, which I've been working with for a long time. And if you actually try to create a game and you don't interact well with users, they don't play it. It's very, very simple. So user behavior or user experience is extremely important in the gaming industry. And user experience is very much about intuition. You need to understand and see to it, but you also need good data to understand how people actually use the products you're using. With this said, I will actually frame it a little bit just to continue on where we were. Why did Apple actually put a magnet on their charger? It's very simple. I'll show a small example of this.
Hello, I'm a Mac.
And I'm a PC.
I'm afraid to ask.
Well, I was sitting on my desk.
Yeah.
Someone walked by, carelessly tripped over my power cord, yanked me straight down to the ground. Bam!
Yikes. MacBooks come with this power cord that connects magnetically, so when it gets pulled, it just pops right off. Everything's just kind of thought out, you know, like the tiny built-in eyesight camera.
My life is flashing before my eyes. I see a sunset in a field of beautiful wheat.
Isn't that your screensaver?
Yeah.
So what I want to say with that is, if you look at TV today, it's actually not intuitive at all, which we just framed here in a very, very, very good way. Actually, user experience sucks. You're stuck in one place watching TV with a remote which really isn't built for navigation. And you're stuck in time, and you're stuck in device, and all the things we just talked about here. And what we looked at in Magine is that if TV was invented today, what would it look like? And you would probably not be stuck in boxes, for an instance. So everybody I talked to today, they still think about boxes. You should have a box at home, and that should be the center of your navigation. And but the user don't use it this way anymore. They actually, if you look at any digital service, it's available on all devices. You can listen to music wherever you are today, and you can play games wherever you are. You can actually even read your magazines wherever you are. But in TV, you're stuck at watching TV on your TV with your clunky remote. And I'm actually going to show you another video of a nice guy talking a little bit about this, and I'm going to guide you through what he's saying. So this is Magine. You'll see here what's live right now in Magine. You can click any program that's actually airing now. You can just zoom it up, so this is live broadcasted. And in Magine, you can just bring it back and watch anything from the beginning. So you never lose the possibility to watch any show from the beginning ever again. You can walk back in time and just watch anything that's been on television. You can click through different TV guides, which is more oriented to channels, scrolling backwards. There's also a grid where you can actually click and just see what's on television right now on all the different channels. So you just flick around. This is a what's on behavior, basically, what's always been there. You can also just pair this to your television set. So now we actually control the television set through our cloud directly. So now you have TV on your TV with your big iPad as a remote. So all of a sudden you have discovery, you have searchability, you have everything directly in your TV. And of course you can also use the remotes. Everything you can do on your iPad, you can just jump back, flick back, search, and do everything directly on the TVs. So basically, if TV wasn't reinvented today, it's basically what we're trying to do with Magine. Thank you.
Fantastic. Wow, okay, mind blown a little bit. Questions. I'm going to ask the guys a couple of questions, and then you guys, so start thinking about what you want to ask. So first to Eugene. Right, you and I have been we've all been doing this for a long time. Yeah. But what I'm starting to see this year, sort of all over the conference, is real attention being paid to experiences. And my question to you is, what do you think is the biggest challenge in making this move faster? So
I think the reason it's starting to change is because people are starting to have content options. Once the content is held kind of in a monopoly way by the big companies, the big cable companies, there's no reason to do usability. If you think about phones before the iPhone, they were pretty bad. And then the phone companies were, like Nokia and Samsung, they were forced by Apple to actually start making the phones usable. And now they have to, otherwise they'd lose billions. So that's, companies don't voluntarily start making things usable because it's expensive and annoying to set up all those processes. So I think they'll only start doing it in cases where they're forced to, and really the way to force them is only when content options are actually equal. Once you have exclusive ownership of content, there's not a big incentive. So I think it's going to be a while. Having said that, it's not as hard to make video content discoverable and usable as it is to make the iPhone. The HBO Go app, the main reason it's good is because they gave us a little more time and a little more money, and they cared about design. It wasn't that hard. Maybe 9 months instead of 5 months. That's a big difference, though.
Yeah. It's about choosing to change or having to change. And I'm looking at Mattias, and he's like, have to change. Ofer, to you next. So one of the things the hallmark of kind of all of these experiences is the before, during, after, and the richness and depth of content. And obviously it's intuitive. It matches behavior that we've observed in audiences anyway. My question to you is, what do you think is going to happen now? I mean, you've invented this service. People are going to have it. They're going to be able to do the things they've always wanted to do before, during, and after watching. What do you think is going to change about their behavior as a result of this?
Basically, a good design, I think it's really answers your hidden needs. Okay, so when I see the example of Midnight in Paris, and I asked myself, what is this era of La Belle Époque? And I immediately can get the answer through Magine in this case. That answers the need. So I don't think we don't have to change. We just have to have our devices or our services providing our needs at the time we need it. Okay, so it's discovery before we're watching TV. While we are watching TV, sometimes interacting. It's a cooking show. Get the recipes. Get other users' recipes, other users' cooking tips, and then after the show is over, you want to know. There was few topics around the shows that you want to explore further. You want this information to be there for you. So it's not really changing our behavior, but really changing the interface behavior to meet our needs.
Okay, and one of the things I think is great is that you come through content through a television program or a film or something into non-television, perhaps, content that then takes you back into more AV content. So it is going to drive consumption, which is what everybody wants at the end of the day, right? So,
it's part of the discovery. It's another part of the discovery. If you
exactly. So after becomes before. It closes the loop, which I think is really elegant and nice. So Mattias, I'll give you the bomb of question. Right, so you've reinvented telly. What does this mean? When we talk about the broadcast industry, it's actually an ecosystem of companies, everything from advertisers to production companies to now people like us in the digital domain. What is this going to change? How are the other players in the ecosystem going to need to change in order to survive?
So thank you for the question, because it's the right question for us. No, it's really interesting, because we said one thing when we started doing this. We love television, so let's get everybody to actually start loving television again, because television is as big as it's ever been. If you ask a user, they say, I don't watch television. And why is that? Well, because it's not trendy to say you watch television, but it's trendy to say you watch HBO Go and Game of Thrones. Mm-hmm. But they get big through broadcasted television. And what we said from the beginning is, let's look at the ecosystem and let's see that we fit into it and make it bigger. So we said we have two people which we want to enhance the experience for: the broadcasters and the content owners and the users. So we actually fit in extremely well. We are a cloud-based TV operator, so we actually replace the distribution of content. But we don't disrupt the value chain of broadcasters and content creators and advertisers. We're there to enhance the business, make it available for more users, see to it that you actually get better traction for advertisement, and also being able to do new kind of formats that are more interactive in the future. So from the beginning, we said, let's make it better for broadcasters. And what we see now is that we probably are one of the first or the first one doing this kind of service in the world which actually have full content rights. Mm-hmm. So we are not the pirate option. We are a full replacement of TV with the industry and good for the broadcasters. So the answer to that is that we're here to enhance it, not destroy it.
Which I think is great, because it makes it better for everyone, right? It makes it better for audiences as well. Do we have any questions from out there? Yes.
I have a question to Mattias. I'm not sure I understood. What kind of content do you make available on your service?
Today we work with the broadcasters. So in any country which we launch, we have full content agreements with the broadcasters. So what we do is that we make their channels available, and together with their rights, which they have for catch-up or for distribution of content, we make all of those rights available at the same place where you actually have the live signals. So it's the content we make available is together with the broadcasters.
So it's just a different way to watch this quote-unquote regular channels?
Yes.
Anyone else? Yes, over here. Can we bring up the house lights a tiny bit? I can barely see. Thank you.
I have a question referring to the screenshots you were showing from ZBox before, and you were talking about the difficulties of making second screen apps usable. Would you say ZBox has solved that issue or not? Because I'm quite a fan of their metadata-based navigation, which is important, I think. But I wasn't sure whether you wanted to say ZBox is a good example or a bad example for you.
Well, I chose ZBox because I think it is a good example. But I think they're doing some of the simple things well, and that's good, and it works, and it's getting traction. But I think there's a lot more coming from second screen applications, and the challenges will be a bit bigger. So it kind of remains to be seen who will win there.
If you say there's a lot more coming, do you mean it content-wise, or?
Well, I think the biggest opportunities in second screen are around specific shows that have specific features. Let's say it's like a game show where you can interact. ZBox is doing something a little more generalized, and perhaps they will actually start to support specific shows. But right now, ZBox is sort of one-size-fits-all social media counterpart for TV, and it works well. But I think the big wins will be second screen apps that are created by show creators for shows that were created with second screen apps in mind, and where you have to use the second screen to really get the most out of the show.
And one last question, relating to what you're just saying. We're seeing now the first operators in apps on Samsung, like what Telia Sonera is doing and others. And you have the broadcasters releasing their apps, and you have the single shows releasing their apps, and you have the single actors releasing their apps. So where is it going to end, and how are you ready to solve this problem?
So we also work with some of the larger cable companies in the US to make their apps. So we're kind of on both sides of that question. So I can't say too much, but what I can tell you is that when you ask subscribers to the cable services what they think about the cable services TV Everywhere app, they're often not even aware of it. But when you ask them what they think about HBO Go or the ESPN app, they have it, they're fans of it, they know about it. So I think the idea that someone has to open a different app for each channel or each show, it's actually not that hard to manage multiple apps. It's not as bad as it sounds.
Okay, that's about all we have time for this session. All three of these guys are going to be over in the Meet the Speakers area, though, for the next half hour or so. So if you have more questions for them, please do seek them out. Please try not to catch them as they come off stage, because we do have to move on to the next panel. But thanks again to all three of you.
Thank you.